Welcome to BizTech Conversations. I'm Sharon Chang, and today our guest is Per Magnusson, Chairman of Singapore International Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to the show, Per.
Thank you very much, Sharon.
Okay, Per, could you maybe walk us through a quick overview of the SICC, Singapore International Chamber of Commerce, and your role in engaging key stakeholders?
Sure. Yeah, Singapore International Chamber is, it's by far the oldest chamber in Singapore. We've been around for almost 200 years, since 1837. And the purpose is to help businesses and Singapore to thrive. The membership base is about half multinationals and half Singaporean companies.
Okay.
And out of those, about half are big and half are small companies. So this mix of members we bring together, and then we advocate and stand for free trade, multilateralisms, and we are inclusive, and we work for anti-ageism, to be inclusive, and for proposing or proponent for responsible business leadership in the community. So that's where the chamber fits in, and we try to work, hard also in creating a good atmosphere in the business community. We advocate, for example, the circular economy to achieve true sustainability, and we have these annual business awards, which is very popular business awards in Singapore, where we promote collaborative innovation, as we believe in today's world, the fastest and best way to innovate is to collaborate and thereby to achieve a positive change. So the chamber has many working groups and many ways where we are working, but all in all, it's about collaboration and bringing these companies and the members together for Singapore and for the members themselves.
So earlier you mentioned that your members are rather balanced. You have local Singaporean businesses, companies, and also other national organizations. So there are many different umbrella trade organizations and associations. And is there a fair degree of overlapping there?
Of course, there are actually overlapping, but each of these trade organizations has a purpose. And the Singapore International Chamber is quite unique in that we stand for the international independent part. We're not connected to any country or to any trade business segment. So we are a general, all we're doing is to promote business in general and with a focus on international trade and business, which of course fits extremely well in a Singapore context.
Okay, so if just say I'm a German company, right? I'm coming into Singapore. Why should I join SICC instead of be a member of the Singapore German Trade Association?
Right. Actually, I think you should do both, because I think as a German company, I think it's quite good to be connected to a German community and hear other experiences from that. But what you get in Singapore International Chamber is a much wider network and a connection to the Singapore Inc. That is very tight into the real Singapore government and to much wider network than you would get in a national chamber. So I don't think it's either or. I actually think it is both.
Okay, all right. So, Per, how has the pandemic affected businesses in Singapore, and what ways are they actually adopting to get back on their feet?
Right. Yeah, that's a very good question, but a tricky one to answer because it has actually hit very uneven in Singapore. You have companies that are extremely severely hit and are closed down and basically going bankrupt. And at the other extreme, you have companies who are booming as a result of the changes that this brought about. So it's very hard to say that exactly any business, how they have been hit. But on average, business is down, and it has forced companies to innovate and to change. In one way, it's actually a good change. I mean, if you talk about the digitalization, if you talk about these things, these are things that actually we are now doing at a faster pace and are benefiting from. And also other things that are positive is you might have become a little bit inefficient during many years of growth and so on that we have experienced before. In a crisis, you slim down and you really go back to what is working and what is not working, and you start trimming your organization. So I believe that many of these companies will come out stronger once the economy is on a fair footing again and we see growth coming. Many companies will actually come out more lean, more efficient, and stronger on the other side of this crisis.
So for the businesses which has been impacted tremendously, has the Singapore government done anything to help them to come out of this situation?
Yeah, that's actually, I think, where Singapore government really stands out. So both in terms of how much money has been put into this, right? We're talking about maybe 100 billion Singapore dollar, which is a lot for an economy of the size of Singapore's economy with 5 million people. But it's not only the amount, I think, it is how it has been applied and the speed. So it came very quickly, and without any administration efforts, the money started to flow into the companies already, if I'm right, in June or so, which is, I think, unprecedented if you compare to any other country. They talked about big packages, but before the money actually reached the company, it was already too late for many companies. So I think that speed at which it came and the amount that came were very significant. And of course, now it's tapering off, and I think it's not these helicopter money anymore, which goes to all businesses, but now it's more targeted at the needed sector, which I think is also quite a smart way of doing it now when the crisis is tapering off.
So, and also Singapore is launching the Tech Talent Pass program soon. So can you also share with us what do you think the material impact will be in 2021 when this program is launched, as it is only actually targeted for the top tier talent?
Right. Yeah, I think actually so far, if you look at even the last 20 years of Singapore history, talent has been the key recipe for Singapore's development, and foreign talent has been part of that. Of course, everyone knows that local talent is the best. It's the best for the people, and it's also the cheapest if you talk about it for the companies, right? So you only want to go for foreign talent when it's really needed. So when the local competence is not keeping up. So first, I must say Singapore has done a good job with the local talent, but they have also let the companies decide when local talent doesn't work, and then be allowed to bring in foreign talent. And it's in this context that I see that the Tech Pass actually fits in very well. Even though many of those who probably are going to come on a Tech Pass could probably have gotten an employment pass already today. So for them, it's no difference. The difference to me comes more in maybe in that you don't need an employer to sponsor yourself. So you can actually come in. So you have these entrepreneurs that have a proven track record from abroad and so on, and they are now welcome into Singapore without having to take an employment and so on in an easier way. So that's where I see the main effort coming in. And I think it signals to everyone that Singapore is open for business and that Singapore welcomes foreign talent. And I think during the months of the election period and during that period, it was a challenge in Singapore to understand what is the direction for foreign talent. And I think even as I said before, companies want local talent, but when that is not enough, they don't want to be constrained in growing. And to know that the foreign talent is available is crucial if you want to remain in the Premier League of business. If you want to compete with the best countries out there, which Singapore is doing, you need that access to foreign talent as well. So I see the Tech Pass as a small add-on to the policy.
Okay, Per, besides businesses being impacted, due to the current situation of the pandemic, but what are the other challenges that actually businesses, the multinational companies operating in Singapore or the other national companies operating in Singapore and all the local businesses who are your members telling you?
Right. Yeah. So first of all, I think we should remember that it's not only businesses that are impacted by the pandemic; it's also people, and this goes hand in hand, right? And I think that's actually, apart from the real business impact of the pandemic, I think it's actually the impact it has had on us as people is what people talk about. So the how we do mentally, and the change of perspective that many of us have to go through, and the pace at which things are changing. I think that's what people are actually talking quite a lot about. And I think it has impacted us forever. It has changed us. And as we discussed before, in some ways for the better, but in some ways also in a challenging way. So that's one area where our companies are working. But then you have this whole area of digitalization, which goes together with competence and pace of change as well. And either you're on that bandwagon and you're following it, and or even leading that, and you see it as an opportunity, or you're sitting on the brakes and you're resisting that change. And I think any organization is struggling with that. So how to move along in the digitalization and doing that. And that applies for anyone, being a hawker out there or being a multinational. It doesn't really matter. The digitalization is impacting us all. So I think apart from the pandemic, I would say it's the mental welfare and maybe the digitalization that I would like to highlight.
So is the Singapore government rolling out enough digitalization initiatives to help businesses, especially their local Singaporean businesses?
I actually think they do. And I think in Singapore, we are a little bit used to a government that helps us along. And the government is doing that in this way as well. But there are limits to what a government can actually do and how much you can do, right? I think it comes down to the entrepreneurship and the willingness of people to actually drive this. And if you look at the schemes available, say from Enterprise Singapore and so on, it's a lot available, and the difficulty is probably how to use it and how to take use of that. And to me, the skills future and this upskilling of the people is the most important thing, because all in all, digitalization is not so much about investing in systems and hardware. It's about the mental change to see the opportunities that digitalization can bring, and then to have the ability and knowledge to go after it. And so I think knowledge and competence are the core things, and there's a lot happening from the government and also in the school system along that way. And it's hard to see exactly what should be done more than what is already done.
Good. Per, the recent signing of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, the RCEP agreement, right, is seen as a boost to trade. So in your opinion, will the region be impacted?
Yeah, I'm very happy about the RCEP. And I must say, I was surprised at the end that it came as fast as it did. And I was very happy when the signature came. Of course, we would have loved to have India on board as well. And we would also like to see the CPTPP coming forward. But based in the environment where we are, I think the RCEP is a great step forward. But we have to remember that while we have signed the RCEP, it's not yet in force. Yes. And so we have to ratify it, and then there's a transition period. And I think it's a great achievement because it also focuses on tariffs and the access to markets, which I think are core problems. But I don't think we can rest. I think we have to continue working. I mean, there are issues that maybe are not so deep in the RCEP agreement, like if you talk about labor rights, environmental protection, intellectual property, dispute resolution, and all those other things, which maybe a CPTPP would be a little bit better at addressing.
So do you see opportunities for your members actually to take advantage of RCEP, and where are the opportunities for them?
Yeah, it's such a good question, because with all these free trade agreements, we always ask ourselves, so what is now changing? What can we do to make use of them? And how can we make our our members better equipped to now understand what this means to them. My take on these free trade agreement is that in a free market economy, prices and supply and demand will actually regulate this. So what we will see is an increase in general in growth, just because we become more efficient. We have a little bit less tariffs, it's a little bit easier to do trade, so companies in general will grow a little bit faster. But looking back at it a few years later, I think it's very hard to say that it was because of RCEP that we achieved this 0.2% better growth and that this company did better than the other company. It's very hard to say, but that there is a general benefit from it that we should not underestimate, that I strongly believe.
So what about the new Biden, the President-elect Biden administration? Do you think that it will affect Singapore businesses?
So I think in every election affects businesses, and actually politics affects businesses. So that's clear. Whether it's good or bad in the end, it's also very hard to judge. What businesses want is clear rules and plannable rules for the long term. That's I think the most important. So when you make an investment, you know that you know what happens also a few years down the line. You want rule of law. You want, for example, then a strong WTO, an adjudication process in WTO that works. So there are a few benefits there that you can clearly see are more likely to be resolved now. But in overall, it's about bilateral trade agreement or multilateral trade agreements. It's about a general belief in the economy and international trade growing and all that happening. So who knows in the end? We will see what happens in the future.
Yes, yes, maybe next year. Yeah, hopefully next year we'll see some changes. So, but Per, is it the business community's expectations that Biden will take a softer stance on China?
It's very hard to say, actually. I'm not an expert on that topic myself, and it's a very difficult one to say. I mean, that issue, the US-China relation is complex. And I think that any president from now on, I would say in the United States, has to deal with the legacy of that history, both before Trump and during Trump and now going forward. So that one is not easy to say, but I think that some clarity and more predictability is important in any international relations.
So moving to 2021, what specific activities and goals will you be doing for your members?
Right. So both, if you start talking about business in general, I think 2021 will be a very interesting year. 2020 was a tough year.
Yes.
We dealt with so much change and so much restriction, and every morning you woke up to something new and you were busy firefighting and adapting to that new change. I think we will see a lot of change in 2021 also, but I think the world is looking quite optimistic going forward.
Hopefully, yes, with the vaccine, yes.
Exactly, the vaccine is coming and things will slowly get better. And I think, as I mentioned before, companies are ready now. There's a pent-up demand to do more and to get out there and do business. So I think that's interesting. In terms of the chamber itself, we are launching a new strategy where we are actually adding even more value to our members and how we can actually help them along even better, both in terms of networking and also in terms of navigating the changing world that we are now. So a very exciting year that we're looking up to. We're also continuing our deep dialogue with the top echelons of the Singapore government, which we have in our Distinguished Speaker Series, where various ministers comes in with dialogues and we really get down to discussing with them the issues at hand. And again, that's something that is possible in Singapore, where the politicians are very approachable and pro-business and actually go out there to help. And I think they have understood that the best welfare for the people is to have strong companies that employ people and that pay taxes. And in that sense, they are supportive that businesses grow, and that's very interesting.
So, Per, as a final question, and are there any other areas which you would like to highlight? to our audiences here in Malaysia or in the region?
Yeah, I think it is just to keep your hopes up. I think the last years might not have been the brightest in terms of people who believe in free trade and multilateralism, but I think we are seeing a change now, and the pendulum have swung, and with RCEP signed, with WTO hopefully getting back a little bit back on the court again, and so on. I think we're seeing reduced trade barriers and an increase in trade again, which will benefit all economies. And combine that with that we're over the hurdles of the pandemic, I'm very hopeful that we will see quite a nice future.
Per, thank you for taking your time to give us your views. I have been speaking to Per Magnusson, Chairman of the Singapore International Chamber of Commerce, on BizTech Conversations. For more business and technology conversations, check out our website, www.biztech.asia.